we'd like to thank Reverend Dr. James Hall, although he is absent, we just want to highlight his name, and we're grateful that he's being here in Next Town, being able to host community events such as this. Tonight's town hall, we'd like to focus on public safety and criminal justice reform. Just a couple of ground rules that we're going to encourage everyone so that we can be mindful of time and give everyone an opportunity to speak. To your left, you'll see a microphone here on the stand. We're going to invite folks to be able to share their thoughts and questions on this microphone here. So if you don't mind coming around the back and walking up the aisle to the microphone, we greatly appreciate that. We are going to ask that you try to keep your remarks and questions to 2 minutes. But we do want to emphasize that the folks that are here on the stage, we are really here to listen. And this is an opportunity that we would like to take to you to hear the community's thoughts, concerns, and questions. So now I'm going to be passing the microphone to Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner, who will provide further introductions. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here tonight. We can all see each other, but there is another group of people who will be watching this event live on Facebook. We hope it's a nice group of people, because there has been a lot of interest in these town halls. I'd like to just take a second to introduce to you some of the folks who are on the stage with me. To my right, your left, is Chesley Lightsey. She is the chief of our homicide and non-fatal shooting unit. What I mean by that is she's a lawyer, she's a prosecutor, and she supervises a team of mostly lawyers, but some others, whose job it is to prosecute shooting cases and homicide cases when they are brought to us by police and when they are charged. To my left, your right, is Robert Listenbee. Mr. Listenbee is one of the first assistants. That kind of sort of makes him a vice president, you might say, in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. Like Ms. Lightsey, he has a very interesting history. That history includes, more than anything, if I were to summarize it, a career spent dedicated to juvenile justice and to trying to find out things to do that make sense in terms of public safety, in terms of justice for juveniles. He was for many years the chief of the juvenile unit at the Philadelphia Public Defender's Office. Once again, public defenders are attorneys, and so he supervised a whole team of attorneys and then some staff members who were not lawyers for the purpose of defending people who were in the juvenile court system because they were charged with crimes committed before they reached their 18th birthday. He got to be so well known for this kind of work that he actually was selected by President Barack Obama to be the chief of juvenile justice for the United States of America in Barack Obama's second term. So he knows a couple things about a couple things. We have a number of others who are here with us. Chief Lamar Stewart, to my right. Mr. Stewart wears a few hats. He is an employee in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. He is a police officer, and he is also, in another life, he is a pastor. But he's our chief of community outreach, and one of the important things he does is try to encourage our connection to community and our opportunity to hear from the community. We have Don Ike Jones with us, one of our newest employees. Mr. Jones, you know one way, so they know who you are. Mr. Jones is working in community outreach now. He also has a very interesting history and does a lot of important work in the community, including canvassing for this event going out today to try to make sure that we have some folks come here. We have Adriana Bearfield, who's been very much involved. She works in community outreach and does a wonderful job. And we have Detective Agnes Torres. I'm sorry, did I miss somebody? I apologize. We have Marielle from Victim Services, wearing a mask over here. And she is part of our team within the DA's office of employees who work with victims of crime in different ways to try to make sure their needs are met and their connection to the police department and the detectives need to work with them is maintained. And we've placed a very, very high priority on homicides by shooting and non-fatal shootings in that kind of work, including with something that started with our administration called the CARES program. It is a group of about 12 people in the community who have all experienced homicides in their lives and who dedicate their time to assisting the families of homicide victims very intensively for the first 45 days after there is a killing. At that point, our regular victim services team, who are excellent, kick in and take over. But we made a real priority of that. And then we also have Detective Agnes Torres, who's there to make sure none of you try to bum rush me. And we have Dustin Slaughter, who's in the hallway. He manages all things technological. And that's why we are able to have this conversation with people who are not in this room. So let me just lay out, if I may, what we're trying to accomplish here. We're trying to not do this, which is have me talk at you, right? I promise I'm going to quit that soon. The whole idea was that we would go out into the community for 4 different nights, and this is the 4th night, or 4 different events, and we would try to hear from people in that community, ideally, their solutions, their thoughts, their ideas about how we continue with criminal justice reform and how we continue with prevention of crime and public safety. We all know that there are terrible problems right now in Philadelphia and frankly in basically every big city with shootings, with homicides. We all know the problem. We do not, and I say this respectfully, need someone to come to the microphone and say that there are shootings. We know that. What we are hoping to get from all of you is your excellent ideas, your thoughts on how we can work together with you, with people in the community, to do better in terms of public safety. How we can work with you to do better in terms of prevention, how we can work with you to do better on the solutions that you have imagined, that you have thought of. If we were in California, there'd be a lot of people who make a lot of money in tech who would say what we're doing is called crowdsourcing, meaning you take the wisdom of a large number of people and some great ideas come out of it, ideas that even the great Bob Listenbee couldn't think of, right? That's what we want to do. So with that in mind, it's our intent mostly to listen, but we do have people here who can answer some very specific questions. If you would like, we are inviting you to come forward, but in this order. People from this community who have not spoken at another community town hall. This is not an opportunity for people who spoke at the first one and the second one to get up again at the 4th one and say the same thing they said before. We've heard it. We're happy to hear it in private again. We are not happy to have a line of people who came here to express themselves, who are standing behind other people who've already done it 2 or 3 times. This is about our really trying to connect with you and see if we can find a path forward in a way that we can work with you. Having said that, I'm going to give Chesley and Bob a chance to just say hi for a second, and then we'll go directly to any input from people from this community who have not spoken at one of these events before. At the end, if there's extra time, and there are people who still want to speak, who said something before, want to say it again, okay. At the end, if there's extra time, and somebody who lives in, Chestnut Hill or Rittenhouse Square has something to say, we'll be happy to hear it. But we want to really prioritize people from this community who have not had a chance to express their ideas before. And we'd love to hear what you have to say. I mean that sincerely. We really, really want to hear what you have to say. Chesley.
Hello, thank you for coming. I will keep this very brief. I do appreciate you all taking the time to come out today to meet us, to talk to us. One of the things that I don't know that we covered yet, but I want to say it up front, is I cannot today, if you ask me a question about a specific case, that you know about or have questions about, I'm not going to be able to answer that for you today, all right? It's not the purpose of tonight, and I'm happy to talk to you afterwards, get your information, and get back to you if there's something specific that you need me to know or want to know from me. But I do appreciate you all taking your time out of your, I'm sure, busy and hot schedules. It's air conditioned in here, so that's good news, to come out tonight. Thank you.
I'm just going to say ditto to that. We sometimes have people, and I appreciate them and I respect them, who will say, my uncle, father, husband, whatever, has been in jail 54 years, and let me now tell you for the next 4 minutes all about it. That's not a conversation for this group. You can certainly come up and talk to us about it afterward, and we will be happy to get back to you about it.
Thank you very much, DA Krasner. I'm very pleased to be here this evening. And as the DA has stressed, we're really here to hear from you, to learn what we can about your ideas about how we can do a better job. I'm focusing on youth, young boys and girls who are having challenges out here in our community. There are a lot of them since the pandemic. We have People ask me frequently why I joined the DA's office after having worked with the Public Defender's Office so long. Quite frankly, I've been able to, after the DA persuaded me, join his office. He is a visionary. He really does have some ideas about how to do things better than I have figured out after working in the system for so many years. And so I'm here because he wanted to prioritize children, working with children in the juvenile justice system. That was one of his top priorities. He made it clear. And he's been able to really bring about some changes, and he's looking to do a lot more during his second term. So happy to be here, looking forward to hearing from you. If for some reason we don't cover an issue that you think is important during the course of this conversation, I'll be around here afterward and listen to whatever you have to say. So looking forward to hearing from you.
And finally, I would be making a terrible mistake if I did not highlight for you that we have 3 people here who have done a tremendous amount on these issues, who I consider to be allies, mentors, role models, friends, and they are Councilmember Ken Brooks, who is here. We also have Senator Sharif Street, who's just coming off of a terrible tragedy with the loss of his wife's cousin in a homicide that occurred on July the 4th, where there were about 80 plus fire cartridge casings, in other words, the back end of the bullet lying in the street after that happened. And we also have with us Majid Rashid, who's done such amazing work for so many years in Philadelphia. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. All right, and with that, I would like to invite any and all of you who are from this community and have not spoken at another event to please feel free to come forward. The microphone is important, A, so we can hear you, but also so that people who are watching on Facebook Live are able to hear your thoughts.
Good evening. I'm not from the community anymore. I was living in this area some years ago and moved up to the Northeast. My question is, how are we going to stop the corruption in the judicial system? And for you, with the youth, I've been through a lot. My son been through a lot, and he's a youth. We are now homeless people, which it was corruption in the court system. Now, how can my son be redirected and not going out in the streets trying, because it was a lot taken from him and me. How can he not go in the streets and retaliate of what was taken from him?
So, thank you for your question. I realize you're not currently from this area.
I was.
But you
many years.
I understand.
15th and Wingahocken.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
I heard you say that. So, so I appreciate your speaking from your experience here. I don't know the specifics of your situation. You haven't told us all the details.
Okay, well, my question is youth. My son is caught up in all the corruption that went on in the court system. How can my son be redirected so he don't go in the streets and get caught up in anything?
You want to try to address that?
A couple things. One, if your son is in the juvenile justice system, we have a lot of...
No, he's not. And
okay, so he's out.
I'm grateful that he's not. But regardless of what would happen to him, he may end up there. He may end up there.
How old is your son now?
He's 16.
We have prevention programs that we support and encourage. The district attorney has been focused on prevention since he's been in office. And so what I could do, if I knew a little bit more about where your son lives and what he's doing, I can connect.
We're homeless. We're homeless. We're homeless. We're homeless. Everything was taken away from us. We're homeless.
Well,
how you doing, ma'am? I understand what you're saying. I don't think it's not as much a legal, technical question.
It is a legal, technical
No,
question.
hold on.
Yes, it is.
I'm gonna answer you.
It is. It's very much legal. It's very much legal.
I'm gonna answer your question the best I know how.
Okay.
All right. So you're saying, let me make sure I understand the question. The question is that given all the terrible things that society has done to your son, How do you talk to him and keep him from going out and responding and retaliating because of the things that were taken from you, and him going out, trying to get those back in a negative way that lands him in the criminal justice system? Is that the question, basically?
Yes.
Okay, so I do understand the question. I apologize for characterizing it the way you just went. So this is a question that parents have to confront all the time. Sounds like you guys lost a lot of material possessions.
No, we lost everything. Everything.
No.
Everything.
Ma'am, with all due respect, you lost a lot of material possessions. You ain't lose everything. Standing here, my nephew.
We lost everything except for life.
Right, and we
So it's pretty much everything.
Hold up. That's not everything. Because I'm standing here as a man who buried a nephew yesterday. So what I remind you is, you ain't lost everything till they're dead. And what I'm saying to you is, as a parent who has 3 sons who had to bury a cousin yesterday, right? Who are 18, 21, and 23, we have to learn that the streets will tell our kids what they're supposed to do is go back and retaliate. And we as parents have to find a way to talk to them in a sense to say that I love you, I value your life, and what was taken from us, and I'm telling you, this is a person who has to look at my kids who buried a dead cousin because some fool shot them in the streets, to tell them you cannot go out and retaliate. Right? So I'm not speaking from a place of a person who doesn't understand talking to kids who live in the community, who then are angry and upset about having something taken from them. Now, it's a different something, but having your cousin laid into the ground at 23, at 21 years old, because some fool just decided to unload a gun and didn't care who he hit, is a pretty powerful conversation to have. None of this is stuff that we want to have a conversation. And these conversations are extremely difficult to have with our young people. But what we have to do is make them understand that, one, their life is more important than anything else that's already happened. And then two, what I would say, one, in terms of the mechanics of trying to make right the material possessions of things that are wrong. I represent this area. You can contact my office, and we will work with you through the mechanics of the legal system to get back the things you that you have lost through the legal system. And that is a very arduous, detailed process, but we are committed to working through with you. We'll, to the extent that there's a role for the district attorney's office, we'll work with them as well. But on a basic level of your question about how do I say something to my kid, that's a tough conversation because it's one I've had to have. And what I'm telling you is, you have to say to your child, no matter what else has happened to me, your life. No, I'm saying, but you have to, I'm saying, agree, as I know I'm saying, but as a, we are one. I know, to us, but as a parent, when I look at my child, what I have to say is, son, to me, as your father, as your uncle, as your loved one, your life matters more than anything else that has happened. And I need you to have that same value up for it. And that's all I'm trying to say. Yes, as a community, I would say that to your children, anybody else. I've had that conversation a lot of times. It's much more difficult when you have it with your own children, which I've had to do very recently. And so I do understand. And what I'm telling you, and as to figuring out all the things that have happened to you, we will work with you to get through that.
The only thing y'all can do now, only thing the city of Philadelphia can do for me is cut me a check and let me go about my business, because I have no desire to be in Philadelphia anymore.
Well,
so you can call Mayor Kenny and Diane Cortos, whatever her name is, and you too, because you know I attacked you too.
Okay, that might be part of the process. All right, thank you.
I'm sick of y'all. I'm sick of this city. All trying to cover up shit, not with me.
Good evening. My name is Eugene Kennedy. I'm a committee person in this area. One of the things I feel is a lot of these crimes, people are getting away with it. And one of the things I thought about, if we had something like a Philadelphia Most Wanted, where these people would be highlighted every week, you know. The second part of that is, I know that you don't control how they disperse the police department, but these cops need to get out the cars and be in the neighborhoods, you know? Because if they did that, people would come to them. They would talk to them if they got to know them better. You know, when we have block parties, cops need to be dispersed to the block parties. That way they get to meet the citizens on the block. And then that way they won't be scared to talk to them. But these are just a couple of solutions I think will really help to stop the crime. Because these guys got locked up, and a lot of them are doing the crimes over and over and over. You know, so if we could catch some of them and let them face justice, I think that'll do a lot for the city.
Mr. Kennedy, thank you so much for your comments. I really appreciate it. Let me see if I can answer some of that, but I want to make sure I let you know that Representative Derisha Parker is here. Thank you for being here. Representative Parker is not only here tonight, but she's actually been out on the street canvassing to make sure that the community is informed, that they're able to participate in this and other events, and we're very grateful for that. Thank you so much. I understand we also have with us staff from Councilmember Cindy Pass's office, and thank you for being here as well. Thank you, sir. So, Philadelphia's most wanted. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I think it's an interesting idea. I guess what you're suggesting, sir, is that we would try to keep cases that are unsolved, that the police have not been able to solve, present. We would try to make sure people know it's still there, that we need to gather information, bring that information forward. Is your thought that this might be done by means of social media, or I don't know that we could do a television show. That's a whole pile of money. But is your thought that this could be done through social media, through a website, something of that sort?
Well, my thoughts is take TV, number one, because they highlight it on the news and then you don't see it no more. So it became a weekly broadcast, like Inside Story, you know, but highlighting all the crime and trying to get people to call in, you know, along with...
We're going to do it right before or after Jeopardy then. That's what we're going to need.
Well,
everybody knows that's the good spot. Okay, well that's really interesting. I appreciate that idea. And then your second point, or the second thing that you were referring to, you're talking about how many people are getting away with this, and you're feeling that police, and obviously we don't control the police, right. But I have, I think a very constructive relationship with our police commissioner, should get out of their cars. Right. So let me just share this with you. There was a time when Camden was having absolutely terrible levels of homicides and shootings and so on. And part of what was happening at that time is that the police were not getting out of the cars. They had a new chief of police at that time, whose name will come to me, I think it was Nelson, who ended up in a battle with the police union, because the police union was very insistent. They didn't want their police officers getting out of these cars, and they were saying things like, this is too dangerous. They can't be out there, you can't make us do this, you gotta pay us more, etc. That turned into basically a 10-year battle of headbutting. But at the end of this 10-year battle, they were out of their cars. They were in the community, and so they were able to develop relationships with people who sat on their porches and sat on their stoops and would speak to them, and they got to know their names, and the information started to flow, and they were a visible presence on those streets. Homicide rate came way down. He took a lot of lumps, but homicide rate came way down, and he became almost a national model for modern police tactics, community policing, and that sort of thing. He's now, I think, at the Department of Justice. But even after he left, those lessons learned in Camden have turned out to be effective. And they included some other lessons, on how you deal with someone who has mental illness without resorting to your firearm, right? There's some really good stuff that came out of it. So I certainly agree with you that there's a lot of best practices. I don't want to throw my colleagues in the police department under the bus. These are their decisions to make, not ours. But I certainly agree with you that there's a perception in the community that there should be a more community-oriented policing. Let me give you another example. Someone who knows a lot about policing told me about it. So one of the ways you evaluate when you're a police officer in the city of Philadelphia is for what they call, quote, activity, unquote. Certain things are, quote, activity, unquote. So if you do a pedestrian stop, meaning you're a police officer and you stop a civilian who's walking down the street for, let's just say, for good reason, and then you frisk them, and then you search in their pockets, you find something, or you don't, that's activity. If you stop a car because it either does or doesn't have a bad tail light when it makes a turn, that's activity. But if you are a good officer who is walking down a commercial corridor, stopping in at every business, saying, how you doing, store owner? How you doing, shop owner? How you doing, restaurant owner? You heard anything? Is anything going on? Anything you tell me? None of that's activity. You don't get any points. On the promotion scale, if your interaction with the public is friendly and conversational, you get points on the promotion scale and the compensation scale, and who do we want to be the captain and run the district. If your encounter with the community is more like stop and frisk, and stop the car, things of that sort. Well, that should, I understand why they do it. They want to make sure officers are working. But there's a different way to look at what that work is. And I have to agree with you. I think that if they were actually developing those relationships in the community with people who hear things, who see things, who might know things, then the ability to solve cases will go up. As it stands, the truth is that the rate of solving shootings in ordinary times is only about 20%.
Right.
And during the pandemic, it was tougher. The rate of solving homicides in the city of Philadelphia in the last several years has been a little below 50%. Okay? And it was tougher during the pandemic. It's not great. It's not great by national standards. It's not great in terms of the history of the city. There are other answers to this, and one of them is the one I just keep talking about. So far, the city's not listening, which is forensics. There are things that we can actually do with investigative science that are tremendous, that can solve a lot of cases, and the city so far still has not seen the wisdom of putting a little bit of money into that for the tremendous benefit it would bring. But I have to tell you, sir, I completely agree with you. Yeah, I know somebody will be mad because I said something about the police, but what can I do? I completely agree with you. I think it would make such a difference to have a lot of the great cops that we have in the city. We have a lot of great cops in the city. And humanizing people in those communities, connecting with them in a real way. Thank you, sir.
My name is Zuber. I grew up in this neighborhood in Pine Park. I went to Southwest High School and raised my family in the Germantown area. Also, thank you, Representative Parker. I wouldn't have known of this meeting until last night in our PTA community meeting. But to that point, I want to ask the question, what is the DA's office doing for outreach? I feel as though if I wasn't involved in these community meetings, I would have no idea that this was happening. And aside from myself, I know others who have better ideas than I have, who cannot attend some of these meetings, right? But they also don't take this, so they don't know to go on Facebook and check this out. I am not one that use social media a lot, so I would have never even heard of this meeting again. So my question is really, what is the DA's office doing aside from these groups for outreach, and also to your point about having police officers in our neighborhoods? I also agree with you that having their involvement in the neighborhoods and their presence is something positive, because growing up in the city has been nothing but negative all the time. How do you get people to trust them if you can't get your captains to do anything else besides forcefully try to ask people, how can you help us? In the meetings that the captains were involved in, that I was a part of, being someone who was there to help, all I ever heard was, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. So how can we change that culture? I know you can't do everything, but I feel as though something that needs to happen.
Sir, I'm sorry I missed your name. What was your name, sir?
It's Kevin Zuber.
Kevin Zuberman?
Zuber.
Zuber, yes, sir. Thank you. I apologize for not hearing it the first time. So, great questions. I'm going to invite G. Lamar Stewart, who is our Chief of Outreach, to try to give you some information on the types of things we do. But it's not to say that we do it all right. It's to say that you're pointing out that we haven't done it well enough. And I appreciate that. And then the question is, how do we do it better? I can tell you one of the lessons that we've really learned in the last 4 years is this. And that's why I find your comment really important and something we need to work on. But one of the lessons we learned is that we did a lot of work. That was what people wanted in the last 3.5 years. Nothing's perfect, but we did a lot of stuff that people wanted. But we were not so good at letting people know that. The mainstream press, the traditional press, isn't always interested in covering what we would hope they would cover, right? I mean, it got better over time, but they kind of have a traditional way of talking about crime that didn't include all sorts of indications about things that we were doing that we believed were important, we believed we were positive. Those stories started to come out since January, when we began in January to do a weekly press conference every single Monday. And we would talk about gun violence because it was after the weekend, because we were in a crisis over that, but we would also talk about something else. And then those stories started to spill out. And what we found over a period of months is that people really knew a lot more about what we had been doing. So that is proof that we were not perfect at getting out information the first 3 years. We're trying to do more. It's clear to me that we have to do even more with social media. I think we do a good job with social media, but we need some additional horses to pull that wagon so that I think we can reach all the different platforms and we can try to communicate well with people who are out there. I understand, sir, you said you're not really a social media kind of guy. Neither am I. I'm old, so that's just how I am. But let me let Lamar speak to you a little bit about what we do with outreach.
So thank you, DA Krasner, for responding to part of that question, and I'll try to respond to the other portion of it. So our unit is made up of several community liaisons, myself as well as a special assistant, and recently hired a crime prevention and intervention specialist. Each of the liaisons are geographically situated throughout the city based upon police divisions. So essentially we have one liaison for every 2 police divisions. So the liaison in this area is Andrea Bearfield, who's right back there. And I believe the meeting you're referring to was the PennDOT Civic Association meeting, which we attend on a regular basis. And Rep. Parker, as well as Councilmember Brooks and Councilmember Sidney Bass are also often on that meeting as well. We build relationships with the majority of the civic association with the city and attend their meetings so that we can be boots on the ground as often as possible physically in those meetings, whether in person or whether they're virtual. Our liaisons, sometimes multiple staff members are part of those meetings to bring as much resource and information as far as what's happening in the DA's office to those things. We also attend the captain town halls in each of the police districts to add some perspective, but also share information and resources with individuals who attended captain town halls and PDACs inside of police districts. Our unit every 3rd week of the month during the school year, we partner with 14 schools citywide, all public schools except, 13 of the 14 public schools. Only one is a charter, which is mathematics, civics, and sciences. In the Northwest, we're connected with King, with Lincoln Hall, and actually one other Mass Reed charter school at Robert Listenbee. And so those are our Northwest schools, and every third week of the month, we're in those schools, either physically or in their virtual campus, engaging with young people for about 90 minutes, each of those sessions, talking about peer pressure and gun violence and criminal justice reform, or other issues that are concerning them. We host, which I just gave you a flyer, a job and resource hub every first Thursday of the month. We launched that in September 2019, and since then we've been able to connect over 3,500 people to services, whether that's been employment or trauma care or victim services or other social services. Tomorrow is our next event, actually in Nicetown. So the goal is to bring the community town hall to Nicetown tonight, and then to bring resources to this community tomorrow. And so that hub will be held from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Greater St. Matthew's Baptist Church at 15 Willinger Hockin. Or the 15th block, 16th Willinger Hockin, which is right in an area. So we believe as an office that there's a correlation between poverty and crime. And so we believe in bringing resources to communities that are impacted most by gun violence, by mass incarceration, and by other crime as well. And so those are just some of the events. We're partnered with 6 senior centers across the city. And each month we're going to those senior centers, engaging with residents who are seniors. And so our goal, and of course we help the DA by hosting those weekly community press conferences. Most of those press conferences, we've done 24 since January. The majority of them have been in community institutions whether those are churches or masjids or community centers, bringing that information. And we have representatives from council, from the state standing with us, as well as community-based organizations, as we highlight different issues going on within the city, also with our offices. So we would love to connect with you, and however we can continue to support. Lastly, I'll say we respond to crisis incidents as well. Most of the time when I call Councilmember Kendrick Brooks or the senator or State Rep. Richard Parker, they're like, what happened? Because normally they know that our unit responds to crisis incidents, whether there's a young person being shot in the city or there's a quadruple shooting happening in a neighborhood. We reach out to the stakeholders on the ground and let them know what's happening in their community. And then we're bringing our victim services and our CARES team and our support from the DA's office to the ground. So however we can, connect and hear how we can better serve your particular community, we're open. We've hired more staff. Thanks to Krasner and our executive team, we'll continue to hire more so that we can continue to remain connected.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sir. While we're waiting for another person to come forward, please come forward. Let me just say, I want to make sure that y'all understand, because sometimes there's a misunderstanding of what we mean when we say there's a connection between poverty and crime. There is nobody in this office that believes that being poor makes you commit crime. We don't believe that. But we do believe that poverty is connected with usually not one challenge, but a whole series of challenges that make it more difficult for people who are born into poverty or have lived in poverty to avoid getting caught up in the criminal justice system. This is not opinion. This is science. They have actually, I saw a study one time in which they took people who were born 30 years ago and they looked at their economic status when they were born. People who were born at the most poverty level, and then they would, add in $20,000 of income, $20,000, $20,000, all the way up to the highest levels of income. The difference between being born into the highest level of income and being born into the lowest level of income was that you were 25 times more likely to be in a jail at age 30. 25 times if you were born at the lowest level. Now, you already knew the end of my sentence before I said it, didn't you? You already knew that the people who were born into prosperity, no matter what other problems they had at home, they were not going to be 25 times more likely to be in jail. It was going to be the broke ones. So that is what we're talking about. And just, not to get into my life and so on, because it's not funny, but so that you are aware, even though I look like I was born into the George Bush neighborhood, my father became severely physically disabled when I was a young person and was unable to work for a good part as a result of that. And, we lived in high school off of benefits, including food stamps. So I have not lived a life of abject poverty, but I have a little bit of an idea of what it's like to have those kind of financial challenges and to see how much worse it can be and would have been if I had faced those challenges my entire childhood, as opposed to only facing it a little bit later when he became so physically disabled. All right, yes, sir. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, District Attorney, to Councilwoman Brooks, to Representative Street, to everybody that's gathered. My name is Earl Washington Jr. I'm a lifelong resident of this neighborhood, and I also serve as an associate minister of this church. I do come with pain in my heart, mourning the loss of a dear friend who lost his life one month ago today. I was coming home from work and I found out practically less than 9.5 hours later that he was gunned down at a corner store not too far from our block. He was my friend. He would have been 29 a few weeks ago. Just my input. I don't really even think I have a question, but it's always been a thought in my head that whenever situations like this happen, I believe everybody should be at fault, no matter whether you're in the highest office in the city or you're just a resident in the neighborhood. I believe in just just within these 30 days alone, I felt every human emotion known to man. I can't even rationalize how I feel right now. But if I had to say what we could do to make things better as far as the city and rather in this neighborhood is that we need a greater level of transparency between those in the city, whether you're an official, whether you're a cop, or even just a community activist. Just the thought of you just coming back and trying to help some other young person, whether they're on the right path or not, it means a lot. I don't have kids of my own right now. I have nieces and nephews, and well, I'm in the house of the Lord, but I'm just gonna say it like I feel it. I'd be damned if I have to lose anyone else I love because of foolishness like this. But all in all, I just say that there just needs to be that bridge. Without that, our young people don't have no guidance in the future. That's all I have to say.
Sir, thank you for your comments. May I ask you a question now, sir? You said there used to be that bridge. I heard everything you said. I can feel how much pain you're in. But what do you mean by there used to be that bridge?
That there would be some level of involvement, even if it wasn't from the city, just from us as being neighbors alike. There would be a time where, just as I said a minute ago, when traumas like gun violence happen in a bad, no matter what the neighborhood is, it doesn't affect just that family. It doesn't affect just the city. It affects us all. And there used to be a time where I saw my neighbors as an extended part of my family. There would be times where we could see one another as, not just another person or just somebody that's on the street. That's what I mean, if what I'm saying makes sense.
All right, I know I'm going too far, but I would like to ask you one more question, if I may. And if you don't want to answer it, that's cool. But so you are one of the pastors here.
Yeah, I serve as associate minister, yes.
Anybody who's working in a house of faith works with a community, and it's a community of people who voluntarily come together, and they are concerned about issues of right and wrong. They're concerned about issues of raising their children and doing right by the people in their community. So you may be in a position to answer this better than perhaps some people could. Do you have any thoughts on how that bridge, how that sense of neighbors' involvement, community involvement, do you have a sense of how that might be improved or restored?
I would, if I could, then the only answer that I would have for that is you would have to meet these children where they are, no matter whether they're straight students or they're pretty much going down the wrong road. I don't have a definite answer, but all I know is that you would have to meet them where they are, no matter where they are.
Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate that.
Excuse me, Mr. Washington. Just one more question. The last town hall we had, we actually arranged to have a large number of young people come to the town hall. They were with Don't Fall Down in the Hood, which is a juvenile justice program that focuses on young people who've been involved with guns. Not gun violence, but just guns. How do we feel this room with young people, those who are where we want to meet them where they are, so that we can have that conversation? I say that having worked my entire life with young people for over 50 years. How do we get them here, or how do we go to where they are so that we can have that conversation? Because the DA is willing to do that, I'm willing to do that. We just need to find a way of doing it. We bring our own, we bring kids from programs, yes. We're talking about how do we get those who are not in programs, who are not in the juvenile justice system, the criminal justice system. How do we get them to come to where we are?
If I I could make a suggestion in that, if they're not in juvenile programs, then 9 times out of 10, with it being the summertime, they're probably either in a summer program or they're probably what is this, July? So I would say in probably a short amount of time, some of them will be in athletic and football training programs, or whether it's in an active league or even across the street. Like I said, you have to meet them where they are. It's not just a matter of them coming to y'all. You have to come to them.
Thank you.
Can I say something? Oh. I just wanted to say the bridge was broken when the court system started telling us that we couldn't chastise our children. That's where the bridge came in at.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I thank you for having this, I don't know if it's a symposium, but anyway, a town hall meeting. I'm not from the neighborhood, but I traveled here from the 61st Ward, 9th District, because I thought it was important for me to be here. I have some ideas, and if you would just be patient, because I have some things scribbled down. So one of the things that I thought might be viable to help with the juveniles and also our young people through 21 years of age, if we could have some partnership with Philly Tree Plan, the Urban Forestry Division of the Parks and Recreations, and the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. And if we could have our children, whether they're on probation, community service, or they're not, that we could have a program for planting trees within our communities, to have Philadelphia covered with tree canopies to reduce the heat that is in this community. It would tamper down tempers and temperatures. Trees would bring temperatures down to about 20 degrees. So I was wondering if the First Judicial District, the judges, the court system, would be amenable to, if they give a child probation or a community service or a young adult, that they could get into one of these programs and help plant trees. So it has been proven through studies that trees, regardless of your socioeconomic status, does help tamper down domestic violence and street violence and violence in general. So I think planting trees would be something tangible, something that we could see the results of. So then my next one is probably not very popular, but I still want to suggest it. And that is some interdiction among all law enforcement agencies to deal with these gun houses, which are now the new speakeasies. And I don't know how that would be done, but it needs to be done, because within our communities, there are gun houses. So you can rent a gun, you could buy a gun, you probably could put it on layaway, I don't know. But that's two of my ideas. And then the next one is more of information, which has to do with an app called Nextdoor. I don't know if anybody is aware of Nextdoor, but if you don't have Nextdoor in your community, you can set one up and get a lot of this information out. I get a lot of information from Lamar via my personal email, but also I put everything on the Nextdoor app, which is community-based. I think it's about 17 neighborhoods in Philadelphia that's involved. So I think that's it, and I thank you for your patience.
Well, thank you so much. So, trees, gun houses, next door. Senator, I thought I saw you holding up your hand there.
So just want to thank you for the suggestion around trees. It's a good one. First, want to point out that we, in the General Assembly, we passed in the Farm Bill, and I was one of the prime sponsors of legislation that allows for funding for urban agriculture and urban farming that would include urban forestry programs. And it has been found that there are a lot of therapeutic benefits. Every year we bring Secretary Redding, the Secretary of Agriculture, to Philadelphia to talk about the benefits, both physical and psychological, of tree planting. I would love to say I'm the originator of this idea, but it's not. There was this guy that looked a little bit like me, got a lot more white hair, that a long time ago planted 36,000 trees in the city of Philadelphia, and we did exactly as you said, get people, adjudicated youth, to be involved in planting trees, and there are a lot of therapeutic benefits to that. For those who don't know that, we'll talk about my father when he was mayor. So that is something that the city will do. I think that the issue isn't that the first judicial district or that the juvenile court system stopped being willing to refer youth to plant trees. It's that the city doesn't plant as many as it once did. And so perhaps I'm willing to work with Councilwoman Brooks and Representative Parker to see if we can get the city to do more planting of trees, and I'm certain that the court system will be willing to, because the court system still does remand young people to do community service, but they can only do community service if the activity is available. And so the aggressive tree planting the program where we aggressively adjudicated youth to plant trees, a prerequisite to that was the fact that the city had a goal of planting 36,000 trees. And so there were lots of tree plantings to do because it takes a number of people to plant a tree, and 36,000 was a lot. So you had a number of years where that was a viable option. What I would suggest is that that the overall idea about gardening and its therapeutic benefits, there are a lot of urban farming. There is still a lot of cultivation, and it's something certain that we can work with the district attorney's office in the city to see about getting people deferred in that way, and maybe using some state money to make sure that the activities occur. So it's a great idea. It's something the city has tried before. It was a successful program. Didn't get a lot of press. It was one of those things that sort of, I think it got zero press. I don't think the press ever covered the fact that we had kids planting trees, but it was one of those very successful unsung programs, and I'm glad that you noted it. And we have restored funding, this time at the state level, but it's certainly available in that regard.
Thank you, Senator. Point 2, interdiction for gun houses. Yes, that should be going on. I'm not in a position to tell you whether or not it is going on, because people doing investigations don't talk about it, but if your issue is real serious concern, yes. Issue 3 was the next door program. I must admit I don't know much about it. Is there someone who would like to address that? I'm not real familiar with the next door program.
It's a community organization.
Would you like to say a few words? You don't have to represent it, but you're so good at getting people here.
It's a community organization, meaning virtual. So you would be, say for instance, for me, I use Nextdoor Germantown, and I put in my zip code and I put my cross street, and then I sign up with all of my information. The person or whoever is the organizer of this particular neighborhood responds back, and then I'm a part of this community group. And that's where I post a lot of the information. I'm on Nextdoor, I'm on Ring, I'm on Citizens app, I'm on Pennox, I'm on Pana, I'm on Germantown, you name it. Everything that's social media wise. My background, I have 25 years in media relations, so my background is pretty much social media. And also getting back to the young lady when you were talking about agriculture, Senator Street and myself, we do sit on the agriculture committee, and that was one of the things that we did share that we were talking about as far as making sure there was funding for ag. There was recently a program from, I want to say, the Horticulture Society, that they did have a funding program and they were looking for that, but we can make sure that we can bring them back here for you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for understanding. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I live in the community. I've been here for quite a while. I believe that people who make money who are here, rather than the residents themselves, have become reactive to the issues that are here. I mean, basically, I'm saying, when there's a shooting, everybody jumps up. Okay, that's fine, but we need to be, like the brother said, the minister, be out and about. And that's when you find out things rather than find out later on, when you get that call saying something happened. Again, I see it now. I'm going to commend the brother here. I get his email, send it out, send out the one for the night, send out the one for tomorrow. I believe that the brothers that are shooting, like everybody who's shooting somebody is not going to come to church. Now let's throw that out the window. I mean, the guy that comes to church, or the guy, he's not on the corner selling drugs. So that's where you have to find a way to meet these people who are out here doing these things. Now, everyone knows the main neighborhoods or the corners where we're having problems. I never hear about them being up on Grant and Cotman or wherever it is up there going on. Not too many shootings going on up there. The fact of it is, we concentrate on the known areas that we have here. I think that's a better way of getting ahead. Now, all due respect to the trees, but I don't think the brothers on Wingahagan Street, sorry to say it like that, want to plant some trees. We gotta find a better way. And we usually cut it off, like look, all the boys clubs, they go to 18 or whatever they are. But the guys 30 years old are having problems getting jobs. Now we can put a whole lot of money somewhere, but we need to put them back into these jobs. And we need to start busting on them guys down at the union halls, telling them, look, you need to let some of these brothers in there. Now all that look, I'm old school, so I'm in church, so I'm really trying to keep it real clean. But the fact of it is, we've been fighting with the unions, everybody in the city, the state, whatever. We've been fighting with these guys to try to get these kids in there. I'm talking about the ones like 25 and stuff like that, and older. The unions don't break them down. And if you look at the unions, and you look at who they are, the brothers of the laborers, white boys, all the carpenters, the plumbers, and the pipe fitters and whatever, and they're making the money. If you don't get these kids jobs, why would I get up? The first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go sling something. So if you're going to broaden the picture and take a hard look at it, go up Germantown Avenue, Wingahagan, you can go up Erie Avenue. The last time I seen 50 cops, maybe 100 cops at 15th and Erie. When the brother was, he shot the cop. Next thing you know, SWAT came from all over the place, started shooting back and forth. But that's the last time I've seen that many cops in one place unless something's going on. So the basic thing is, I know COVID's going on. I dare anybody to tell me that they go to the 39th precinct meetings or the 35th precinct meetings when they were there. And that was the time for you to voice your opinion. And when I sent my email out today, I said, this is your time to tell the DA, here's the concerns that's in our community. But you can't come when in somebody's shop. Quite truth be shoot. You know, we need you here before that. We need every elected official, every committee person to come on out, right? Because we got the problems. But you can't tell me, right, that you're going to find them in the schools for real, because the kids aren't in the school for real. Drive around here, and I don't think you do. A lot of people do. If you drive around, you'll find the known corners that we got the problems. So, and that's just a broad brush across. And I want to say, my name is Charles Carter. I'm the ward leader around here. So I drive around and see everything and look at everybody and stare them down. But you can't tell me the kids down on 17th and Butler are being shot up. Nobody cares until somebody shot up. I don't see nobody down there. So, like the brother said, you got to come on out that office, take that tie off, come on down, and walk around. I mean, both of you, I'm just pointing at you. But the fact of it is, if you're not there, people think, right, that you don't care. So, you only come out election time, things like that, I'll vote for the other guy, but I didn't.
Mr. Carr, thank you.
Carr, C-A-R.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Carl. Mr. Carl, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure.
Carr. Mr. Carr.
Carr. 1340.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
I took several things from that. One of the things I took from that is, no, you're not going to find people driving gun violence in church, and you're probably not going to find them in school either. You're going to have to go to where they are. You're going to have to get to where they are. I took that. Another thing I heard is you, like a lot of people, are justifiably sick of elected officials or even appointed officials, like people in the police department, showing up when there is a crisis, but not showing up to try to prevent the crisis, not showing up at a different time. I would like to think that what we're trying to do here is an example that goes more in the right direction. This was scheduled a long time ago. It wasn't scheduled because of a particular event. So I certainly share that feeling that that's where we should be. We should be working really hard to prevent the shooting as opposed to showing up in mass after it's already occurred. I hear that. But I am curious because I hear so much of what you're saying, it makes sense to me. I'm curious if you have some direction. If you could tell us.
So I got one for you.
Yes, please.
I wanted you to ask that. I'll just leave you down the road a little bit. How long have you been in Philly?
I have been living continuously in Philly for 34 years.
Okay, so most of us about my age, probably older, remember 30th Tasker, 29th Tasker, when they were having the race riots down there. Now, basically what happened down there, the bus was at 29th Street. And there was many police stations, or they basically took over a house. Say the cops will, right? Or even PHA, right? Even if you take the house at Grants and I would say Butler Street. City take it over. There were a couple of cops just lived there. On their shift or whatever. But what happened was that bus stopped a whole lot of stuff going on there. And that was between the blacks and whites and stuff like that there, right? But it was a presence there. So there wasn't a whole lot going on. It stopped. So in other words, if we get them out, I remember a couple of years ago, the cops from the 39th were on the bikes. I haven't seen them. Lately, someone else did. I haven't seen them either. But you know what? But I appreciate the 39th precinct. Captain Anthony, Luke Titus when he was there. You got Sharon Ng down there, and you got Bernard Spain. You can call them up and say, look, we got a problem going on. But we need everybody to be proactive. Let's get some money. Let's cut them trees down a little bit. Let's get some money for this gun violence. Let's get the kids back to school. I'm going to say one last thing. I'm old enough to remember when Bach was open. I'm old enough to remember when Dobbins was thriving. And there was another technical school. So these technical, there you go, Randolph, right? And what they did was, the wisdom of the city of Philadelphia, let's stop these trades. Now tell me a trade school that you know that's almost free. In the city of Philadelphia for kids between the age of 14 and 18. Nothing. So we're dependent on, let's go play some basketball. We want to be the next LeBron. So the whole But you know what? If you give somebody a trade and put some calluses on their hands, I bet you they'll be out of it, whatever you think's out of it. So just as a thought, Senator, we cool, I mean, you know that, but I'm just saying, why can't we put back these trades for the kids between the age, in schools between the age of 14 and 18?
Well, certainly we should put back trade schools. We put a bunch of money in Dobbins. Dobbins is going through a lot of renovations and needs to do a lot more. We put probably north of $10 million or more in the Dobbins around trades. There is an electrical charter school, and there's certainly not enough seats in charter schools. There's 2, we were at 4 when you and I were coming up. One thing I will take issue with, Brother Carney, you know, you and I are friends and we walk these streets a lot. The program that the system brought up around trees, that translated, first of all, the brothers didn't want to plant trees, but they were adjudicated, like she said, so they had to plant the trees, whether they wanted to or not, they were going to jail. So they did plant the trees. Secondly, a lot of those people walked away with landscaping jobs that were paying $30 an hour when they finished because they didn't, it was a community service in lieu of going to jail. So they didn't have records. They now did have a skill. In landscaping, while you're right, it's on the lower end of the unionized workforce, it's laborers' work, which means it's not, there aren't many barriers to our folks getting in. And even laborers' union work was paying like $30 an hour. And for these guys in street corners, $30 an hour laborers' union landscaping job was real. And I agree with you, we have to address the barriers. You know, I helped run the DAO program before I was elected to make sure people get the higher level trades. But even getting them in a laborer's union job at $30 an hour is transformative to these young people's lives. And so a lot of them didn't want to go plant the trees, they didn't think it made sense, but they came away with a skill, just like you're talking about, where they were able to sustain their families afterwards. And they didn't, so when they left there, they did a form of community service, made the community better, and then when they left there, they were then able to get transition to jobs. And we had some people, Mark Clark, former Councilman Gussie Clark's son, he had an entire business of landscaping that was hiring a lot of those brothers that came out that were adjudicated to do landscaping work and kept them working for years. So one of the things I think we have to do is look at all the opportunities. I think you're absolutely right. We need to take it from they're off the corner into a job. We need to look the full gamut. But the only thing I will say is that the suggestion around the trees did all of that. It took them from off the corner, alternative sentencing, so they didn't get a record, learned a skill, and ultimately we were able to place most of those people in a job because, as you point out, getting in a union job, if you're going to go beyond a laborer, well, there are still barriers that we all agree need to be addressed and a lot of us are working on. But for landscaping, those barriers didn't exist because that's a very integrated space in the unionized workforce. So your points are well taken.
Stand correct.
We're going to put some more money in those trade schools, and I have consistently said in every budget session, as did Representative Parker, that we need to be putting more money in career technical education. All right, thank you.
So once again, I'm sorry. Yes.
One thing about CTE programs, my colleague, Catherine Gilder Richardson has been doing a lot of work around community career technical institutes, whether it's with the school district or as well as with the union. There's a handbook to apprenticeships. So if anyone is interested in connecting young people to the trades or any level of CTE, reach out to Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson's office, and she has a handbook to be able to help people with that.
Thank you, council members. I just want to give myself more trouble by pointing out, you raised 2 really interesting points, and I think the council member has also stressed this point. Point 1, there was a time when you had free technical education that was more widely available. Point 2, which means you get a JOB instead of committing crime. Point 2, here's the truth, and we know the truth. The truth is that these unions, I'm very pro-labor guy, I always have been, very pro-union. These unions have these apprenticeship programs, and a lot of people go into them. Very few people end up in the union. I talked to someone today who spent 15 years working with these programs who laid out for me a whole list of all the different things, all the different reasons. From promising young people who got into these internships somehow never got into some of those unions, or if they did, they had to be perfect to get the couple spots.
Like,
Well, you know, I mean, here's the reality. We can't do both of these things. We can't eliminate the possibility for free education in trades, and then have a door to being a member of a union that is so narrow that only a couple people squeak through it. I mean, there needs to be something done about that. Now, I don't say that in the spirit of confrontation. I say that in the spirit of support for organized labor, which gave us weekends and ended child labor and did a lot of good things for us. But we're going to have to be better at this. I mean, it just does not make any sense to say, oh my goodness, where does the crime come from? When that is the scissors, those two things are the scissors that we've been dealing with now for 15 years. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Chesley, and I've been a resident of Nicetown for 60 years. I've been here in this community 60 years. One of the things that appall me about this community is that the persons who are elected to represent the community, half of the community don't know who they are. We don't know who they are. Like this man said he was a ward leader. I don't know him.
Where you live at?
Where is you? I don't know you.
There's my committee people out there.
Okay. The people who represent the community are not visible to the community. Nor do they help the people in the community. They help their friends in the community. So one of the suggestions that I had to alleviate some of the problems is a lot of our young folks have records. How do we, I don't want to use the word overlook, but how do we address them having records but give them a second chance in getting some of these apprenticeship programs that they talk about? Because if they have records, they don't get a chance. If they're not educated, they don't get a chance. If they don't have skills of what they're really needing, they're not really willing to train them. Not for real. They say you're supposed to come into these programs with a certain knowledge of whatever the trade is. They don't want to take the time to really train them. The other part in terms of the guns, all this gun stuff, I think that the parents need to be educated. I think that parents I don't want to say they don't know. I want to say they don't know how to address the issue that's going on within their household. Because the parents know what their kids do. If they don't know what they're doing, they know what they're capable of. So I think educating them would be a start. I also think that the persons who are in the community, who are elected in the community, need to make themselves more visible to the community and reach out to those persons, letting them know when we have these meetings. Because had I not been outside yesterday, I never knew about this meeting. Nor some of the other meetings that they have, these town hall meetings, the police station meetings. We don't get that information. We don't get it. They say they give it to us. No, they don't. No, they don't. So that's my.
Laura, thank you. May I ask you a question though? You said you heard about this meeting yesterday.
Yes.
Can you tell me how?
This young man and the community liaison, Miss Barfield, were walking through my block.
I see. Okay.
That's how we found out. So the information that because I heard you say there were other town meetings, we don't get any of that information. None of it. When something's going on in the community, if you don't know to network with other people, then you don't know anything about it.
Is there a, I mean, obviously.
There is a community office right there in Germantown in St. Paul. Yeah, the CDC office that Ms. Majida runs. And no offense to you, Ms. Majida, but I don't get any information from you. None.
All right. Well, let me. If I would you like to say something.
So I'll take your information and I'll add you to my team's email list if you get email. You can't just send out random texts, but we do send people out in the community to door knock doors. I'm not the district council person, I'm an at-large council person, but I live on the 1500 block of Harden Street, and when I get information, I try my best to share it within, up the strip. But I'll get your information personally and make sure that you get information that's happening in Nicetown.
Also,
Yeah, we can talk.
Yeah, I was gonna say something.
Also, as it relates to what you were saying, I'm newly elected, but I was a staffer before I became elected. And one of the things that we're able to do from the state side is the fact that we have a database and we send out robocalls. So every time there is an event, we send out at minimum 50,000 robocalls. And my email blast is up to 6,000. And I do those weekly. So between the robocalls, the email blast, and us in the street, the information is out there. And when you're saying friends, ma'am, no disrespect, I don't have anybody friends on my staff. There are people from the community that work in my office.
That wasn't directly to you.
No, I'm just, but we just gotta be careful because it's business law.
I will speak because it's
Okay.
okay. Regina, no, there's no communication in between Nicetown, all of Nicetown community, and everybody don't get the same information. I've been saying this since 2006, that little incident that happened with my son. Regina already knows that information, what you go to talk to and try to get help for your community or any community, because we had a problem, a big issue. That information that I took to the Regina office wound up all over Nicetown. Wasn't nothing done about it, that's why we react today.
Good evening. And the young lady that was here before and said that she didn't get information, I share that what Councilmember Brooks said. Just make sure I get your information. And any incident that we were not able to address is because it was outside of our capacity. But we don't claim to be able to hit every door, every phone number, every whatever. So that we work with everybody. We work with the elected officials. I work with the ward leader. We share information with a lot of people. Sometimes people slip through the cracks. So if we don't have your information, you can share that with us, and we'll make sure that we will reach out to you. That's not a problem at all.
Thank you so much.
Just before the DA responds, so Seth Myers in the back there. Seth, if you can come in real quick. Seth is going to have a sign-in sheet in the back, as well as Andrea as you're leaving out, and you can sign in or sign on your way out. You can sign the sheet, name, email address, and phone number, and we'll make sure that all that information gets to both the elected officials as well as Nicetown.
If you would like to do so, we're obviously not asking you to do it if you don't want to, but we would be happy to add you to any list where you can get additional information. There was a question in there about what do we do about people who have convictions and they're disqualified from getting jobs as a result of that. So let me be real fast with this because I know we have another couple of questions. But for people who are arrested but are not convicted, there are options. There are expungements, meaning there can be the erasure of the record of being arrested. There is a new Clean Slate Act in Pennsylvania. It's one of the most modern laws in the country, actually, about trying to protect people from having cases where they were arrested but not convicted used against them for getting housing, for getting jobs, things of that sort. But if you're actually convicted, then it becomes a different situation. For anything serious, you're looking at a pardon, which means you would have to essentially ask the governor to forgive you to wipe it off your record. That is happening now more than it has happened in a very long time. And it is happening because there are people at the state level who are thinking in a more modern way about it, and my office in some cases supports it. So I'll give you a real fast example. Somebody who had a conviction and has been working, for example, in a janitorial capacity for some time, good worker, would like to be a supervisor, they won't make him a supervisor because of the record, applies, we look at it, we see there's been no trouble since crime was committed 15 years ago, we write a letter of support. Governor, come on now. This is a person who is rehabilitated, has done all the right thing. This is not a homicide case, come on now. Let's take this off the record, and that is happening more and more. It is a simple process, it is not a terribly expensive process. So people who find themselves in that position should consider it. And if it's a really small thing, then maybe it's not 10 or 15 years. Maybe it could be a lot. It could occur a lot more quickly. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry to make you wait.
Oh no, that's okay. I'm here on behalf of Nicetown, not the other work that I do with you guys. My name is Dr. DeShonda Williams. I am a lifer here in Nicetown. My father was the former pastor of New Inspirational Baptist Church. Now my brother serves as the senior pastor. He's over there. My concern for Nicetown is this. I understand that we do have a community liaison that comes through Nicetown. I'm asking that we have intercommunication with that liaison, i.e., can we get Simon Gratz High School on that list of schools that you go in and do 90 minutes? This is for Nicetown. I'm coming for solution-oriented type of situations. I don't know how y'all guys pick those schools, but I'm asking in Nicetown for Simon Gratz Mastery Charter School to be on that list for the next coming school year. My brother and I, Germantown and Cayuga, we have funeralized over 20 people that have been murdered. And out of those 20 people have been some of my friends. Within the last 6 months, we have had at least 3 people die on our steps of our church, Germantown and Cayuga. So for Nicetown, I'm just asking that for the community liaison to do more of an inter-community relationship. It's one thing to go and receive resources from other entities and bring them in our community to disseminate. It's another thing to assimilate. See, it's dissemination versus assimilation. We disseminate the resources, but how do we assimilate those people that we disseminate those resources? And what I'm saying is Nicetown is 17.3% highest in illiteracy. Nicetown is 32.5% high in mental health issues. It's one thing to say, here, go to this resource center, go here, go there. If they cannot read, I have served, Vegeta can tell you, I served as the Nicetown CDC subcommittee president for 4 years. Only was supposed to serve 2 years in one term. I did 4 years in totality. I have been advocating for years for my community, Nicetown, to have a beacon lighted program, i.e., Nicetown has over 165 vacant homes. Why can we not, D.A. Krasner, people that sit in office, can we work together? Can we ascertain one of those houses and turn it into a clubhouse for our young people to go and be taught, not just something that they're handed a resource, not something that's disseminated to them, but something that they can assimilate themselves in with the community liaison, working together. Is different than walking through the community. Great, awesome. You handed out flyers. We only have a few people here, because I guarantee you at least maybe 20, at least 15 people out here are not from Nicetown. Right? So can we create an inter-community working relationship with our community liaison? It's great, go to the meetings, gather information, wherever you get these resources from, but help us assimilate them, because our people are suffering. Trauma is traumatized. That's all I'm saying.
All right, as persuasive as you are, I just want to say yes. But I think, hang on one second if you will, if you can give me a minute. But I actually want Lamar to address what the next steps would be, because what you're asking is interesting. It's got layers to it, and it's not just a yes or no. I think it's more a question of how can we work together.
Let's get the table and chairs and let's talk.
All right. Well, Lamar's got tables. He's got chairs. He's got all kinds of stuff. And I'll tell you something else. We actually have a grant program now within
Well, I wanted to bring that up, but that's another segment of conversation.
Well, you know, but it might be related.
Well, because my community partner, we have PCCP, Philadelphia Citywide Coalition Project. I don't know if you heard about it, but other council people have. We have set up 12 tents throughout the city of Philadelphia. We go on every corner. We provide twin cards. We provided free IDs. We paid for over 10 plus people to get free IDs right there on the corner so that they can have an ID to go pick up a check, pick up a bank account, whatever they needed. We helped them right there in the morning. We said instead of them coming to our office, because they're not going to come to our office, let's bring the office to them. So we've been throughout the city. When we go to certain people asking for funding, of course, it's allocated to who they want to give it to. So I wanted to ask in reference to funding with our community liaison. Do you know that in Nicetown we have over 45 on the boots ground nonprofit organizations and only 4 get recognized, which is the Nicetown CDC, Triumph Baptist Church, because they've already been in long standing. We got people that's been on the grounds going to work, but we get turned away because maybe our bank accounts are not long enough.
But I have so much good news for you.
Well, come on,
May I
tell me
jump
about
in?
it.
All right. And
I want to hear it.
I say that respectfully. I do actually.
Yeah.
So what you're speaking about, which is that the ones who got the money before are going to get it again. And some of them do great work and some of them don't, but there's not really any accountability on it because nobody's really checking.
We understand.
Some of them got the right friends, okay? That's real. It is a real thing. But part of the idea of our taking $1 million of forfeiture money, meaning money that was taken basically from drug dealers during investigations, and taken the right way, not the wrong way. Part of the whole idea of our taking that $1 million and putting it out in the community, especially into programs that are going to reduce crime, was that we wanted to make sure organizations not recognized, not funded before, could get some of that money. So the process.
I said down at the Met when Senator Street had a Met, I said, why can't we geographically bring together all these programs? We have a job fair, we have a nonprofit fair. All those people out there doing this work from the ground up, that's been doing it for years out of their own pocket. My partner, we get up, we work every day. Y'all know, okay, we work every day, we save our money. We put this money out of our pocket.
Well, I understand that. That's why I'm trying to put some money back in your pocket. So if I may, yes, we want to have those conversations. Okay. Yes, Lamar has table and chairs. Let's do all of that. Okay. Yes, there are bigger issues in nonprofits. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Thank you.
But what I can tell you right now, is that we are taking applications right now for money that's going to be pushed out probably in August at this point.
Okay.
And the way that is done is by applying through the Philadelphia Foundation for these grants. Just so you understand, at this point out of the $1 million, we've pushed out about $200,000. The lower end grants are probably $5,000 to $10,000, and the higher end grants, I think the biggest one was maybe $35,000. But it's better than a stick in the eye, as they say. It's something, and it's money that we want to get out there now because we are seeing so much gun violence this summer, because everything is heating up. So to the extent we're able to take people who have been going in their pockets and getting the work done. The guy who's been coaching basketball at the rec center for 20 years for no nickels, and he's got to replace the basketballs. We know that there are people like you out there who are doing this and have been doing it for free. To the extent that we're able to provide some support for people we have not heard from before, who have not gotten funded before, but are doing the work. That's something we want to do, and the Philadelphia Foundation evaluates that for us. We're not looking at a big tournament. So even while we're dusting off the table and chairs, even while we're buying a couple more chairs, this is something that can be done with a simple application very quickly. And before you leave, Lamar can get you the email to send there, if that's something you want to do.
So based on what you just said, I'm giving you my card. Why we can do the nonprofit fair that you're talking about.
I've been asking for the
No,
last 5 years.
it'll be done.
Okay.
I recently held.
We have a whole database. We will blow your mind.
Okay, we can partner.
We got a whole net. It's
But
crazy.
what I was saying was I just did one virtually, and what I had was the decision maker from the state walking nonprofit organizations through why they did get funded and why they did not. So we can do it again.
Dr. Williams also just texted you the email address, grantmakingservices@philafound.org for the grant. I just texted it to you.
Yeah, we went on there. We didn't see it specifically that said.
If you email that specific email address, it's going to go to Phil at the foundation, who is the director of grant making, and he's responsible for our process.
Can we get a targeted date when Simon Grant is going to get on that list of those schools?
So the principal of Simon Grant, we made outreach to him when he arrived to the school 2 years ago to make our.
I'm an alumni, so I can get. We'll be in there by September 1.
Okay. I'll just answer your question. The principal, when he first arrived at the school, we reached out to him. When we reached out to Cleveland as well, the goal was to go into both the schools. Right. We were also in Still Elementary for some time as well. But he had just gotten there. He said he would reach out. We had not been able to reconnect.
And I'm telling you, I'm an alumni. Okay. We're cherry and white and not blue because of me standing here telling them we cannot erase our records.
Okay.
So I'm telling you now, Simon Grant, can we get on that list?
We can certainly, we're willing to add more schools, no problem at all. We have 2 more, but we're going to ask because of time, and I know we said we was going to end at 7:30, and so we're going to ask that the next 3 residents will come up and raise their question or comments, and then the DA will perhaps respond at the end, just so we can do this in a decent time. Sure.
And I am a resident for 35 years now.
are older to talk about certain things. We see, we hear. I went to the 39th district. I met Officer Spade. I went to the CDC office. I met some with that young lady right there. I can't say their name, but I know who you are. As a result of that, as a resident, it made me feel more in tune to what I could potentially expect if I participate. Before, I didn't. Now, I do. I want to do it more, but the results that I will seek, I have a neighboring property next door to me that through Kingdom Close, I never met her. I expected to meet her today, but I know she's in the hallway. Through her people, through CDC, I met someone who gave me enough assistance on the phone that I was able to get a case number for clean and seal. They talked earlier about the gun houses. Well, we got the drug houses. They are visible. Visible. And I know that the neighbors are afraid. I am uneasy. My dog is uneasy. They right in back of me and right in front of me. I feel trapped. I'm not a slouch. I'm a working individual. And because I work, I missed a lot. But I've been home on injury for 2 years. And I see so much more that I had to start reaching out to CDC, PhDC, learning people's names and the jobs that they do and network them where I could to my neighbors that needed help. I'm not saying that I have the answer to anything, but that's what I had to do. It helped me. It's helping others. I just want to encourage everybody to continue to have that mindset and hold people accountable, get their name. And I'm not computer literate. On a scale from 1 to 10, I'm about a 5. I thank God for the young people in my family to help me out. But what I'm saying is still write a letter, I can email, I can do that very well. That seems to be more effective now because I'm telling them to forget. Coming out to places like this is good, but this room should have been packed. Just because of the recent violence. I live in the 4300 block of 15th Street, and I've been there since 1986. And in that time, I want to say I've seen 5 people die on my block. As recent as August. It's ridiculous. It's frightening. Whatever anybody can do, if it's just, like I said, sharing information with your neighbor, getting somebody's email, shooting them email, just be a nuisance until somebody answers you, not until the door's open. As neighbors, we need to be ready to get involved and become a part of the root that's in the soil in our community. We live here. And a lot of the stuff that's happening in our neighborhood, those people don't live here. They come from elsewhere. And that is known too. So I agree with the young man who spoke earlier about setting up these houses like it used to be. I came from Wilson Park as a child. We had a community building in our neighborhood. My mother raised 6 children by herself. We wasn't fearful. We could go to a community building and have arts and crafts, home economics, sewing, activities for the kids. 2 little girls got killed on my block one day because there's no space to play. They play between their steps and the curb, the street. On 15th Street, they fly trying to make the light for 76. Kansas Street, everybody know that's a drug circle. They get them drugs on KM at 16, turn around on 15th Street, and it's dangerous. We need some speed bumps on 15th Street. It's a simple solution, but just don't take it for granted that the people who've talked to you already is just saying what they're saying and then it just drops on deaf ears. Please, no. It's not something that everybody's comfortable with, just even talking about certain things, but it's time that somebody pays attention and helps us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for that message of taking action.
Hello, everyone. I'm not going to be long. I'm Betty Jean Thompson. Some people know me as Nobles. When I think about trying to get people together, I think about the fact that people like a reason to come other than the problem. And so it's important that we have some sort of a program that includes either children or someone from the community that can do some type of performance that brings people out. And I also know that people love sports and the arts. If we can find some way to connect with the district attorney's office in doing some arts programs, even people who commit crimes love the arts. And they will come out to see a performance. And I just wondered what you thought about that idea. And my question also is, do you have a youth panel that you talk with? Because I'm looking around, and I know you said you had young people before, but whenever I come to these events, I don't see young people as a part of the panel. And I think that would be important also.
So thank you so much. Let me try to be concise. I would love for you to get in touch with our other first assistant. Her name is Carolyn Temmon. We'll get you her email before you go. She, like you, has a great interest in arts programming. She was a dancer herself when she was a little bit younger. And certainly what you're talking about has been effective in some other cities, including Los Angeles, where they have a program that does a lot of arts. You're absolutely right that all kinds of people are drawn to arts. Athletics is not the only thing. We have, in fact, funded a program in Philadelphia called Mighty Writers. It was one of our grants, which encourages children in the arts, specifically writing, whether that is songwriting or that is writing short stories or whatever it may be. So I'm with you 100% there. If you have some ideas about how and where and how best to do it, let's get you in touch with Judge Temmon, retired Judge Temmon, who is one of our first assistants, and we can have that conversation.
Okay, writing is my thing and some other things too.
Well, wonderful. All right, thank you so much. Next question.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Angela Bell. I'm a reverend, but I live in a Homebird section of the city. I found out about this meeting by my aunt that just spoke, and my friend right there, Edna, just spoke. But I have lived in the North Philly area sometime in life. I live in North Philly, I live in the project, I live in South Philly, I live all over Philly, basically. And my comment was, when y'all was talking about the vocational schooling, that's a great idea, because I have a son, my youngest son, he went to Dallas Randolph, and now he has his own business. And it was free back then, and it was, it's just a good thing for to have the children doing some. I also worked for the school board, I'm retired from the school board for 25 years, so I worked with children for a long time, and now I'm a family advocate with children and families at PATH. So when you include children, like my aunt was saying, you got to give children something to do. You got to keep them involved in something like arts, maybe drawing or doing poetry and stuff like that, singing or dancing, or just finding some kind of avenue for them to go to feel involved and stuff, so they won't go to the street. I also have a brother that teaches boxing. Get children involved in something so they will, won't think about the other stuff, the negative stuff. Give them something positive to do, so that will make a difference in their lives. And, as they learn, as they grow, as they get older, they need something to do, because there's so much peer pressure, like in school, in their neighborhoods and stuff like that. And so if they get, a way to escape that'd be good for them. That'd be good for them to be able to escape what's going on in their neighborhoods and escape that peer pressure, and to be able to get involved in something else. So, and once again, that vocational training will be a great great idea to get back into the schools. Because even I went to school in South Philly, and I remember we had home economics, we had sewing classes, we had all that stuff, but it was free and it helped the kids and it helped, the community. So that'd be a great idea to get back into the schools and the community.
Thank you so much. What you mentioned your son went to Dobbins and has a business?
Yes.
What kind of business?
He's in carpentry. He took up carpentry, now he has his own carpentry business. He makes K-made benches for the flower show. He made stuff for Pennsylvania University, like he make countertops and benches and all. He's actually working at my job right now for PAF. He made countertops and stuff in there. So I'm real proud of him, but I'm just saying that to say that, and we came from North Philly, we lived in a project, he grew up in a project, so it doesn't matter where you came from, it's where you going. And, the idea that how you learn how to do things, that it don't matter where you live at, you just gotta have a sense of direction to know that you want more out of life, and then they be around people who can encourage them, that will make it better. So I tried to get my son to come in tonight this week, but I think he had other things. He's working. I think he had other things to do, but...
Let me ask you this, when he was coming up and he's learning to do that kind of work, did he have a mentor? Were there some older people, more experienced people who did that kind of work, who took him under their wing?
No, not really, because when we lived in the project, I just applied for different schools, because he was going to go to John Wyderman, so I signed him up for different schools, and they just, that school called him, and he went to that school. And it's funny, because he didn't want to go to that school, he wanted to leave his friends in the neighborhood, but now he's doing good. That's how he met his wife there, now he got his business there, got children, so I'm just saying to say things positive can happen, regardless of where you came from.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your comments.
There may be any remarks from Rep. or Majida before we close?
Yes, we are at 8 o'clock, only half an hour past our deadline. Are there any other comments?
The young woman who just spoke, we were talking about what we're doing for the children in this neighborhood. Myself, I think I was a state rep maybe like less than 30 days. So myself with our Minority Appropriations Chair, Senator Vincent Hughes, we did secure $1 million and more is coming for a 100,000 square foot center for our children for Nicetown. We're going to have basketball court, financial literacy, we're going to have learning everything you possibly imagine. So we heard the need, it's definitely here, and we're definitely going to make sure that center is here. I think we're going to be breaking ground at the end of the year, this year or next year, but due to COVID, some things got, pushed aside, but those things are coming for our children in this area. It's called the 6-man center.
Where's that going to be located?
So much, council members, do you have a couple?
Where?
With the Hicken.
Where's the Hicken?
For the young woman that was talking about arts programming, and in the Nicetown area, I've been working with Stanton Park to help them do more programming for young people in the area. So I would like to get your information to see if I can get you connected. Right now, a lot of the programs are self-funded by the person who's running it, but I've been working with them to secure money from Friends of Stanton Park to make sure our kids have opportunities for, extracurricular activities that they usually wouldn't have been provided to. So I'm going to connect you to the guys over there and see what we can do.
Thank you, Ms. Majida Rashid. Did you want to say a few words? Or no, you don't have to. It's up to you.
I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you to DA Krasner for coming to the neighborhood to share, allow us to share information and ask questions. And of course, the community liaison of all time is Reverend Lamar Stewart. Without a doubt, he's a good communicator. And for anyone that we haven't been able to connect with, I'm here to connect with you. And just know that we're here, that's exactly why we're here. Our NAB coordinator, Solomon Williams, was here earlier. So, anything we can do. And this young lady here too that expressed that her family was homeless. I'm sorry Dr. DeShonda left because I know there's ways she can help her through her work with the mirror. With the mirror, Ashante Love. You still with the mirror, right? Yes. Because this young lady here was expressing something before you came in about homelessness. She may need some help from here. Okay, but everybody, you know, I'm going to still try to connect with also the young lady that was there too, get the information. You know, we got to work together and stop, you know, if we could just not be mad at each other. You know, figure out a way to talk to each other and work things out. I think it'll, you know, we'll do a lot better. Thank you.
Let me just say a final thank you to everyone. I do want those of you who have been at other meetings and have contributed, I don't want you to think we didn't hear you. We did hear you. We take notes from these meetings. We keep those notes. We talk about them afterwards. For those of you who brought us literature, we review that literature. We take it into consideration. Please do not feel like your participation did not matter at those meetings. It did. And for those of you tonight, exactly the same thing. We have heard you. We will consider everything that you put with us. We look forward to working with many of you in the future. And I want to thank you sincerely for coming out and sharing your thoughts with us. Every time we do this, we learn a lot. These two are really smart, so they learn less than me, but I learn a whole lot because I don't know much. So I really sincerely do appreciate your input. Thank you so much for coming out on a 127-degree day.